Hello, welcome to Dungeon Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Today we're reviewing The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, which is 2003 fantasy film based off the J.R.R. Tolkien film series, book series, right? And we watched the extended cut, which is like 4 hours and 23 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I watched this movie last night. Couldn't review it because it was pretty late. Obviously, it's a 4-hour movie. Barely got time to put in any hours into Dragon Quest. Which is what we're playing right now, Dragon Quest 8. We're doing like a little side quest. At least I think it's a side quest. So the movie had a budget of $94 million. Stars Elijah Wood as Frodo, Ian McKellen as Gandalf, Liv Tyler as Arwen, Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, Sean Astin as Sam, Cate Blanchett as Gadriel, John Rhys-Davies as Gimli, and the voice of Treebeard, though Treebeard is barely in the movie. Bernard Hill as King Theoden of Rohan, Billy Boyd as Peregrine Pippin Took, Dominic Monaghan as Merry, Orlando Bloom as Legolas, Hugo Weaving as Elrond, Miranda Otto as Éowyn, who has a huge part in this film, David Wenham as Faramir, Carl Urban as Aylmer, John Noble as Denethor, the Steward of Gondor and the father of Boromir and Faramir, Andy Serkis as Gollum, and Ian Holm returns as Gollum. Right, and Martin Sioux is back as Ceolborn, though he barely does anything. So, I really enjoyed this movie, obviously. It's 4 hours long, so I'm going to recap the movie, and I'm probably going to forget to mention stuff. But like I said, the movie's like 4 hours long. Oh, I really should have healed. So the movie starts off very similar to like the last movie, where you have like Gollum again, but this time you get Golem's origin story back when he was Smeagol of the Hobbit, Smeagol of the Shire, who was a Hobbit, where you see how he first encounters the ring and kills his friend who found it, which was pretty messed up, right? And then after that, which you do see a montage of Smeagol's like transformation of a slow transformation of Gollum, where like he turns CGI at the end, which they use practical effects at first, but in the very last shot, his eyes turn CGI and shit. Oh man. So yeah, after that, you get to see you see our characters Gandalf, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, and the King Theoden go to Isengard, meet up with Pippin and Treebeard and Merry, and they go to get the terms of surrender of Saruman, who's like the only, besides from him and Grima Grimtongue, they're the only survivors of Mordor's forces at Isengard, right? And you kind of got to see a complete reversal from the first movie, where in the first movie, when Gandalf went to meet with Saruman, they have this very one-sided fight. Here, it's like the complete opposite. Saruman shoots a fireball at shoots a fireball at Gandalf, and Gandalf, completely using magic, completely absorbs the attack, and like breaks, using magic, breaks Saruman's staff. Which after that, you also have like, you know, Theoden tries to like get like, you know, Grima Wormtongue to surrender and come back to like Rohan, right? Grima Wormtongue, while like Gandalf is trying to get Saruman to surrender because they want to know what Mordor is up to. Grima Wormtongue pulls a dagger and literally stabs Saruman in the back, and Legolas shoots him, right? Which he might have known something too, but whatever, right? And so what happens is like, what happens? Saruman falls from the tower and lands on a broken spoke and dies, gets impaled, which was a pretty cool epic death. Which in the theatrical cut, it was very anticlimactic how they handled Saruman, because like I think in the theatrical cut, they just like they go to Isengard and like, you know, and like Aragorn says, or somebody says, what should we do with Saruman? And Saruman and like Gandalf's like, leave him. He's completely defeated. We won't have to worry about him anymore, right? Which there's a really cool speech. There's lots of cool speeches in the movie, but one of the cool speeches is like what Theoden says to Saruman, where he's like, where like Saruman's like, leave me in peace, right? And like Theoden's like, peace when all the, I can't remember exactly what he said, but like when all those who've died from your treachery is avenged, and you're hanging from a tree, that's when there will be peace. Which it's a lot longer than that, but it was a pretty badass like scene, right? Badass, like, you know, like speech / threat, right? And then Theoden's like, Rohan's great hall. Rohan is like, you know, a thatched barn full of barbarians, right? He just calls them like savages, right? Like completely insults Rohan. So yeah, after that, they take Saruman's crystal ball, which you know is connected to Sauron, the Great Eye, whatever. So Pippin you know, takes it from Gandalf while he's asleep to look at it, which Gandalf sleeps with his eyes open, so you would think he would have noticed, but whatever, right? So like Pippin takes a look at it, and all hell breaks loose, and like, you know, Sauron is like, you know, giving him like a seizure, right? Is trying to get like, you know, Pippin to like rat out their plans, right? But he accidentally sees into Sauron's mind and sees what their plans are. But because of that, like, which they're planning on attacking Gondor, right? The great city, which is called, I forget what it's called, but it's like Tir Miris or something like that, right? So like because of that, like Gandalf has to take Pippin to Gondor because the enemy is already heading to Gondor anyway, and like Sauron thinks that Pippin has the ring, right? So they take Gandalf takes Pippin to Gondor. Pippin swears allegiance to the stewards of Gondor, which is Boromir's father, Denethor, who's gone crazy after hearing about the death of his son, Boromir, and sends his other son, Faramir, to retake a city that was taken by Mordor's forces, where you got to see that battle, right, at the 1 hour mark, and Faramir is like getting sent to a suicide mission, right, and you think he dies, but really he's just wounded and asleep, right? That's the thing that happens twice in this movie, where you think a character dies and really they're just asleep, right? And then, which was so confusing, because there's like a scene where one character dies, right? And then you see them wake up, and it looks like very dreamlike, those sequences. So at first they're like, oh, so I'm like thinking, are they dead? And this is just like they're like a dream or something, or like they're in the afterlife or something, or ghosts. And it turns out no, they're alive. What was up with that? Man, that was a little confusing, right? But I guess they were trying to they were trying to speed up for time, because this movie's like 4 hours long, which is only an hour. Apparently, the theatrical cut of Return of the King is like 3 hours and 20 minutes, so it's only like an hour longer than like the theatrical cut. So like, what happens after that is Rohan it goes to aid Gondor for the final battle, which is not actually the final battle. It's the second to last battle, and what ends up happening is Denethor is basically a coward and wants to die. So Gandalf has to take over command of Gondor to defend them against Mordor, the forces of Mordor, where they have it's not just orcs and cave trolls. They have the ring wraiths are riding the Nazguls, which are like wyverns, wyverns, which is like small dragons, right? Which are pretty badass and pretty friendly in the movie. They also have these giant elephants, right? Which were pretty cool. Yeah. So also, there's like a side quest in the movie where Aragorn gets the sword of Isildur, the guy who first defeated Sauron, right? So he becomes like a legitimate heir to Gondor at that point. Goes to this evil mountain to try to recruit a ghost army, right, who were cursed after they betrayed the vows of Isildur, right? So they are able to recruit them and use them in the battle for Gondor, right? And immediately release them from their oath. I would have kept them around for the final battle, but it's like, whatever, right? Whatever, right? So while all that's going on, Gollum is leading Frodo and Sam into a trap, right? And Golem is poisoning. Is gaslighting Sam against Frodo. Gaslighting Frodo against Sam makes him think that Sam ate all the rest of the food, right? Which Frodo, man, every time I think my hatred for Frodo is not legitimate, I watch this movie and Frodo is a complete idiot, right? Golem is a being corrupt, completely 100% corrupted by the ring, right? But for some reason, we know the reason why Frodo wants to believe that, like, you know, Gollum can be good, but it's like for Frodo to at every turn take Golem's side over Sam, his best friend, who honestly who could disagree with me after watching the end of this movie that, like, Sam, it would have been a lot better off if Sam was just the ring bearer from the beginning, right? Instead of Frodo, because Frodo is complete. His naivety is like is completely, like, his naivety in the movie completely screws him over several times in the movie, and by the end of the movie, he pulls at Isildur and wants to keep the ring for himself. It wasn't for Gollum and Sam. All of their friends would have died, right, at the final battle at Blackgate, right, where, like, you know, where Aragorn and friends have a diversion, right, because they wanted to, like, you know, empty Mordor's land, so, like, you know, Frodo would have, like, a chance to sneak by and, like, you know, throw the ring into Mount Doom and completely, you know, defeating the enemy. Though, like, one problem I have with this movie is, like, they never said in the earlier movies that if they destroy the One Ring, that would defeat Sauron. It was the whole point in the beginning of the movie, in the, you know, beginning of the trilogy, was we need to destroy the One Ring so it doesn't get into the hands of Sauron, right? Because that would make Sauron be able. It's implied that, like, Sauron would be able to resurrect himself if he ever got the ring. So, like, I'm a little confused that, like, Sauron somehow, the One Ring being destroyed somehow kills the Great Eye of Sauron and makes and destroys him, right? That was never established, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the whole point of the journey and to, you know, traveling with the One Ring and destroying it was so it would never get into the hands of Mordor. I mean, the Sauron's forces, right? So that's one problem I have with the movie, right? They never established that, but, like, whatever, right? I did forget to mention some stuff, but, like Eomer, sorry, not Eomer, the one chick, Elwyn, at the Battle of Gondor, completely turns into a Mary Sue and defeats, not only takes down one of the war elephants, which would have been, like, you know, good enough to make her, like, to establish her as a female badass warrior, but she also defeats the ring wraith that Sauron put in charge of his army, right? Which almost killed and defeated like Gandalf, destroyed his staff. So, like, at the rest of the movie, he doesn't really do any magic, right? So, like, yeah, she was able to defeat an enemy that, like, you know, that, like, Gandalf himself couldn't beat. Gandalf, who defeated the Balrog, by the way, back when he was Gandalf the Grey, right? So we have to, which, you know, he's a lot more stronger now that he's Gandalf the White. So, like, yeah, that was one thing that bothered me in the movie, right? For you Karl Urban fans, Karl Urban has a lot more scenes in this film, and comes off like a complete badass, and even survives till the last battle. Whether or not he survives the final battle, I'm not gonna spoil. But like, yeah, he was awesome in this movie. And there's like a scene where like Mary, there's like a funny line where Mary, you know, goes to fight for Rohan, right? And like, you know, they're kind of like, Karl Urban's character and another Rohan guy is kind of making fun of Mary, right? And like, you know, Elwyn is defending him because obviously, because like she sees a lot of herself in Mary, because Mary, nobody believes she can fight either because she's a woman, right? And like, you know, Karl Urban has this great line, funny line, where he's like, "I don't doubt his heart, I just doubt the reach of his arm," which I thought that was a funny line. There's some funny lines in the movie, and I did think the whole Pippin really screwed up. Like, he makes a mistake that he should have learned. Because in the first movie, he makes a really, he makes like a terrible mistake, right? That almost gets everybody killed. And in the second movie, he redeems himself by convincing Treebeard and the Ents to attacking Isengard, right? Which they would have never have captured Isengard if it wasn't for Pippin, right? And then Pippin, like, as a character, backtracks and makes like a really stupid mistake for like no reason, right? When he tries to look into like the Saruman's crystal ball, which I forget what it's called, but it's like they all know it's connected to, like, you know, Saruman, right? So it's like, what the fuck was up with that, right? But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie, but there are some problems. But I think it's a great film, and I'm giving it like an 8.5 out of 10, right? And I think it's worth watching the extended cut, right, over the theatrical cut, because they're both like they're both long ass movies anyway. So you might as well watch the complete version, right? Yeah, so that's all I have to say for this review. I'm going to try to maybe watch the Hobbit films starting next weekend, right? I'll try to have them out by, like, Sunday, and not completely mess up and do them on Mondays and Tuesdays like I did with the Lord of the Rings films, right? Yeah, that's it. And, yeah... and I'm gonna try to review, like, you know, some other I'm gonna try to review some more recent films, because like by New Year's I want to have like my list for top movies of the year, right? Yeah, so like I'm gonna review movies like These Little Things with Denzel Washington, The Last Duel of Ridley Scott, and I'm gonna try to review Pig, because a lot of people were saying that was the best year of the movie. The best movie of the year, which some people are saying is Dune now, which is like, I completely disagree with that. But, well, what can you do, man? What can you